right. Well, welcome everyone to the Florida STEM Innovation Panel. Very excited to have you all join us today. Wanted to do a quick kind of housekeeping stuff before we dive into the panelists and get started with things. Your microphones will all be muted. As you guys have questions or need assistance, feel free to chat or raise your hand or press the Q&A button there as well. But excited to hear your guys' questions kind of as we dive into this. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to start by introducing myself, and then we'll introduce our wonderful panelists today. So my name is Sean Reidy, aka Nerd Dog. That is my fun superhero name. We are all about the superhero theme here at Legends of Learning and fun and engagement for kids. I am a former New York City teacher. I taught in the Boogie Down Bronx and in Harlem. I ran a school in Southeast DC, and I joke that I'm a professional cape wearer and also a rapper because I taught algebra, but kids weren't always that excited about algebra, but they loved music. So I made a fictional character named Nerd Dog and made it a whole lot of fun for kids. And so that's a little bit about my background. I'm one of the co-founders and director of district partnership here at Legends. And just for context, for anybody who doesn't know us, we are a K-8 math and science platform, and we're bringing this educational leadership webinar to you all, and very excited to kick things off. So we have four amazing panelists today. So Jennifer Davis is from Palm Beach County. As a teenager, her goal was to get a degree in equine management and then to breed and train show horses. She's so happy that didn't work out. Jennifer ended up with a degree in biology, which enabled her to switch careers and become a teacher in 2003. Her 16 years as a science educator has included 3 years in a private school, 6 years at a Title I school, where pretty sure she taught every course at one point or another. And after earning her master's in curriculum instruction, she became a science curriculum specialist in Palm Beach County in 2012 and was promoted to program planner in 2016. She's also the director of Palm Beach Regional Science and Engineering Fair, and she is passionate about inspiring teachers to grow as professionals and hone their craft to provide engaging learning experiences for every student that they serve. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Larry Plank is the Executive Director of K-12 Science Education for Hillsborough County Public Schools in Tampa, Florida, the 7th largest school district in the United States. Pretty big. Mr. Plank currently co-chairs the Tampa-based STEM Network, one of 89 international STEM learning ecosystems supported by the Teaching Institute for Excellence in STEM and Samuel Lee Foundation. He was elected in 2019 as the president of the National Science Education Leadership Association in NSELA for a 3-year term ending in 2022. Welcome, Larry. We have Joe McNaughton. He is the Senior Director of Mathematics for Polk County Public Schools. He's worked in Polk County for over 6 years and spent 20 years in Manatee County as a teacher and curriculum specialist. Joe is the past president of Florida Association of Math Supervisors and serves on the FAM's executive board. He's also co-leadership chair for the Florida Council of Teachers of Mathematics. One of his biggest honors he has received in his career was being chosen as the 2018 Kenneth Kidd Mathematics Educator of the Year. Outside of the mathematics world, Joe works in youth ministry and the Boy Scouts of America. Welcome, Joe. Cool Yoda in the background there. And last but certainly not least, Jeff Hancock is the Senior Director of K-12 Science and Social Studies for Polk County Schools. This is his 3rd year in the role. He has held the same role in Orange County Public Schools, as well as serving as a teacher and school administrator in his 18 years in that district. Currently, his primary project is to achieve exemplary school district status for Polk County with regards to African American Studies curriculum. He's an avid sports fan and enjoys rooting for his children and grandchildren in their sports endeavors. And I have to give him a shout out because his daughter is an exceptional golfer. like state title level, which is pretty amazing. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you again all for being here. We're very excited to dive in, and we'll be asking some questions and really have a fun, engaging conversation about STEM and the impact over the past few months and what lies ahead. So love to get started with you, Jeff. What are 2 lessons you've learned while adapting to the new normal?
Number one, I think you've got to have a great relationship with your tech team. We meet every Monday at 2 o'clock. The senior directors and the tech team, just to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page and know what's going on with everybody for just in case something happens, or for us to be in the know of what each other are trying to work on and achieve. So that way I think you can roll those things out a little bit easier to your teachers. I think the second thing is you got to be wary of how you roll things out. Coming from a school-based situation where things happen very fast, I had a little bit different relationship with my teachers there, and I can roll some of those things out a little bit quicker. Coming here where I didn't know anyone when I first got to this district, it became more of a coalition of the willing. So we rolled some things out a little slower, like we did with Legends when we implemented that last year. Then we jumped into some of the trainings. Obviously, this situation didn't allow for all of that, but what it's done as we've come back is how we roll out curriculum to people. So Joe and I both agree that if you give them a little bit at a time instead of all of it at once, it's a little more manageable for them and they can dive a little bit deeper into it. And I don't think that just goes for teachers, it's for students as well. They need just digestible bites of information at a time. And if you give them too much, they're likely to shut down. So we want to give them just enough to keep them hungry. And I think that's been the biggest lesson with this, is you cannot overload your teachers.
Cool. I don't know if anyone wants to kind of piggyback on that.
And just to add what Jeff was saying about relationships, not only just with the our tech team, but really just the communications that you have with individual teachers and schools. That's so important. But you know what I saw so much, especially starting in March, is how important the relationships between teachers and students. I know it's important. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous saying that, but I think a lot of that social and emotional learning piece that needs to be embedded within it. Just the teachers who had great relationships with their kids had far better results than teachers who were kind of standoffish. So I think just relationships in all levels, not only district, but school, but individual classrooms, are so important.
And this is Larry, piggybacking off of both Jeff and Joe. I love what Jeff had to say about, how you scale and about making sure that the relationships are there. And then Joe, to your point, the teachers who had the best relationships with their students are the ones that appeared to be most successful. So, with our relationship with Legends, it started in Hillsborough with that coalition of the willing. And, we had several, I think 100 or so teachers utilizing the product in various ways before we moved into our pilot phase, which was a couple of years ago, where we were able to utilize the product in our STEM Innovation Hub sites. But, in March was an eye-opening experience for us. And, we all know that we have teachers on our faculties at a variety of schools that are tech savvy, utilize technology every day. And for those teachers making the transition into the closure of school and into an e-learning space, and then even picking up this year and being able to establish some sort of culture of academic excellence and rapport with their students, those teachers that are tech natives or enjoy utilizing technology have been able to do that. And although we have a lot of pressures and there are a lot of stressors on our school systems today, the catch-up was, for us, the eye-opening experience was, wow, how do we turn all of those other teachers, there's thousands of teachers as well on our faculties that may be excellent teachers face-to-face and are utilizing great techniques, but we're not able to do that in a virtual sense or virtual space, but also we're unfamiliar with all of the virtual tools. And to throw everything at them at once. To jump onto a learning management system, do e-learning, learn all the tools that are best practices was a real hurdle for us. And fortunately, when we delayed school at the beginning of the year, we continued to pay our teachers in Hillsborough. So for those 2 weeks that we delayed, where students weren't attending, our expectation was that those teachers attend workshops, and Legends of Learning was there with us, made sure that our teachers had access to their staff to ensure that they were able to log in and utilize the product. So we're appreciative of that, but we're still not in a space where we have all of our teachers utilizing all of our virtual platforms in the most effective way.
I'll let you go to the next question.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of back to you, Larry. What's now, from what you guys have learned from the start of the year? Obviously, it was a very different start of the year. What is now a best practice for your district that wasn't there before? Maybe something new that you had to bring up because of what's new.
So for us, something that's emerged as a result of really this triad of probably really poor timing. We had a brand new superintendent whose first week on the job was the week we closed school in March. We are also in the process of adopting a brand new learning management system. So we were new to Canvas. We're one of the larger districts in the nation, even in the state, that didn't have, Canvas or Schoology or some other similar product as a learning management tool. And we had a pilot set that we would, utilize Canvas in a subset of our schools from February till June. Of course, that, was railroaded by COVID, and that would be the third element that we had to deal with. So we learned a lot really fast. And, going back to the point I'd made on the previous question, two things really emerged. And the first thing is, we needed to ensure that we had digital assets that mirrored what our expectations were in our classrooms, because we knew that a subset or even substantial amount of our students would be e-learning, not only for the end of last year, but we were prepared for, thousands of kids to be in an e-learning or hybrid situation for this year. But then the second big thing is bringing teachers along and figuring out, I think it was Jeff that mentioned, being best buddies with the tech division, and for them to understand our needs from teaching and learning, curriculum instruction, and what we were trying to load into Canvas and what we were trying to do with all of our products and tools that we utilize, so that forward facing, it was easy for the students and parents to understand, and then secondarily for our teachers to utilize. But really the hand-holding, and it's a continual learning experience for us, the best practice of how to bring teachers along in the virtual world. So I would say two things. It's that mirroring, what we expect to happen in a regular classroom in a virtual space. And then secondarily, it's how do you bring your faculty there with you? So, and we're still learning.
And I would just add to that. I think all of us in education have come to the realization in the last few years of how important relationships are. And we all talked about it, and we all said how important it was, but it really came home hard in March, because as all of you have already said, those teachers who had the best relationships with their kids in their classrooms fared the best spring when we all got sent home. And thinking about it from a leadership standpoint, the same thing is true. There are subsets of teachers in schools in my district that I'm very close with, and that my curriculum team is super close with. And we had to deliberately set out to develop the same level of relationship and trust with every school, so that every single school knew they could reach out to us. For example, here in Palm Beach County, for middle school through high school, I have 6 different publishers. And so simply, how do I log into my textbook became the most complicated question ever. Well, which book? And what grade are you in? And what are, all of those kinds of questions. But really setting ourselves as my curriculum team, and my set a goal for ourselves that we would not miss anybody and leave anybody behind. Anybody who asked at any time of the day or night was going to get an answer. So really kind of, that's our best practice, is that we are 100% behind our teachers. We're always there for them, and they are, we serve them. My curriculum team here at the district office, we serve our teachers, and that's been our standard best practice so far.
I just know Jeff and I in Polk, Larry, we were right with you, because we had Moodle as our LMS, and we were going to be switching over to Schoology, but it was like one of those projects that was in the future. So I know for us, ramping up and going through doing Schoology in 2 months, starting in June. So you had a little head start, not too much, but definitely not enough to unveil what it's been. But I think what's going to be a best practice that wasn't there. I think once teachers they're using our LMS, and I think it's going to be more of a blended, which I think is the best thing that can happen with it, is that, no more excuses like, oh, I was 6, I don't know what was going on. Well, they can go on there and see what's happening. If lessons are being posted, I mean, teachers are doing some phenomenal things. I think sometimes us at the district level hold them back to what their full potential is. I mean, some of them are doing such incredible things. I know we have teachers doing like courses like AP Stat. There's just not a lot of it. You don't have multiple every school, multiple teachers teaching it, but they're doing it hybrid. They have some kids live, they have some kids on quarantine that are watching it, they have some kids that are just e-learning, watching it at home, and they've found ways to go ahead and still have group work and dynamic. I mean, it's really amazing how teachers have adapted, not to the style that they are used to teaching in this virtual world. So I think that is a best practice that's going to really continue on.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I mean, I think one of the things I'm kind of hearing from you all is, and I'm sure many teachers that are on would agree with this in terms of like just being overwhelmed, right? Like this is a whole new world. It's like everyone's like a first year teacher, right? And at the same time, right, especially specifically with science, right? Hands-on is a very, very important part of the science learning. So in this world where some are virtual, some are in person, they have to maintain a certain distance. How have you been able to incorporate more hands-on group-based activities? Like what have you seen really great things from teachers in terms of trying to do something like this?
Well, the first thing that we did when we started our, not in the spring, but with our memorandum of understanding for the fall semester, when we started school back up, is that we had it included in our memorandum that science teachers would be expected to do at least once a week a virtual lab simulation or some kind of virtual experience. And so we set that as the expectation. And then we provided as many resources as we could possibly think of, Legends being one of them, for them to meet that expectation. And so again, setting that expectation, but also providing tremendous amounts of support in order to meet that expectation. And when we say hands-on, that's a very limiting term. It's a very limiting term. Any kind of learning experience, what we really tried to make it vague so that it wasn't hands-on, because we can't do hands-on, everybody's at home.
Right.
You can still have amazing learning experiences. And we also discovered the power of our local community. We reached out to local organizations and we said, can you help us? And nobody said no. Nobody. I took kids out to the drag strip. We went virtual field trips tromping in the swamp. We went to the beach. All you need is an iPhone and a willing participant to take who's not afraid to drop their phone in the water. And we had virtual field trips. And at first we didn't think that kids would really be engaged in it, and they were. Because suddenly from right here in my bedroom, I can see sea turtles, I can see manatees, I can see the swamp, I can ask all kinds of weird questions. So really just opening the doors and saying to teachers, what's a great idea? How do we engage kids? Because it really wasn't about things being hands-on, it was about things being exciting and engaging. And so that's what we aimed for. Nothing was off limits.
Jen, so what I hear you saying is giving kids who might not otherwise have those experiences opportunities, right? And especially when those are via their friend, their teacher, whomever, who might be videoing or recording that. And we've tried to do the same. Throw those things, activities in our lessons, and give them just a chance to experience those things. And to be honest, the teachers have been awesome about it. And I think it's actually opened up some opportunities that weren't otherwise there in the past, or that we didn't think of. So including one person is at home and one person's at school being a teammate on this particular assignment. And we've seen a lot of teachers doing things like that with a virtual field trip / lab activity, also from nearby community members that are filming or doing those things for us. Agreed. It has really broadened, I think, some opportunities for teachers to think outside the box and given them a platform, i.e. with our new Schoology, of where they can house those things for kids to see them. So,
and I'll say this, when we started, as the curriculum leader in Palm Beach County, the word standards-based is spinning in the back of my head. And I realized, I don't care. I can link a standard to anything you want. I just want the kids in there watching and excited about science. I just want you to like science. So that kind of went away. And amazingly, teachers were able to make that connection, and they were able to make those choices based on what we offered. Oh, that links to what I'm doing. That doesn't. I'll go to that one. I don't need to do that. I just need to provide the experience and trust the teachers. They know what they're doing. They know what's relevant to their classes and what's going to work for them.
That's really cool. I mean, honestly, it's like one of the reasons why I'm pretty passionate about this, because my son has really gotten these in kindergarten, but he loves science. Like, my father-in-law is a chemist, and last night he was pulling books off the shelf of I don't even know what the thing is. It's like electrochemistry. I was like, I don't even really know what this means, but he's sitting there and he's like opening the book and he's like, Dad, this looks like, a satellite. And it wasn't really a satellite, but he's very excited about it, So it's really cool to hear that you guys are doing experiences like this, right? Like that you're still pulling in outdoor, these virtual, field trips, that's allowing them to still connect with what's going on. It's really, really cool. Larry or Joe, anything to add there?
I think we don't have as many cool field trips at mathematics as you can go visiting manatees and going through the swamp. But I know what we have seen more often is the use of simulations and, bringing in all of the STEM components to that. I think teachers are now more, since they've now had the taste of what some of the online, a lot of times teachers, if they are successful, they know what works best. And if it doesn't have anything to do with online platforms, they're not going to go ahead and switch to it. This is sort of really encourage them to go ahead and try something new. And a lot of them are being very successful. I know in middle school, this is our first year using Legends. And again, that's just one of other programs that teachers are like, oh, this is here. Okay, I'm going to try this out. And again, you said it like everyone's a first year teacher. So everyone's like an explorer right now. They are learning so much information, and they're testing. For some teachers, it's bringing back, oh my gosh, this is a little exciting. It's not just the same old. I've had successful results for the last 5 years. Now I got to do something different because the climate has changed. So everything from virtual manipulatives. Jeff mentioned the breakout rooms, and I've seen it where we were doing something and a teacher wanted to watch how their E-class is doing. And so I was put in a breakout room with kids, and they just were all over it, taking pictures, taking screenshots, sharing the information. It was just incredible watching it happen.
Joe, I think one of the other things out of this is that you've got to have, and thank you, Jen, for allowing your teachers there to do it, and I'm sure Larry's doing the same. Those teachers got to have the opportunity to try this and fail. Right? Yeah. It might not always work. That's okay. We're good. We're trying this. And like Jen said, we're just trying to get kids to love science and or math, and as well as math. We can be mathletes as well. But I think having the opportunity, just like we should give our kids chances to be successful and or to fail, but whatever they do from either, they learn from it and move forward. I think that's big for teachers. They haven't always been given that grace.
I think
go ahead, Jennifer.
When in the spring, when the announcement was made that there would be no testing, I think the first amazing thing that happened is I said to my teachers, I'm like, what an opportunity. What an opportunity to take every risk you have ever wanted to take with your teaching. It doesn't matter. It's okay. And that was the first thing that went through my head. And the second thing that went through my head was nobody quit teaching, even though there was no test. Look at that. Everybody kept teaching and everybody kept learning.
I was just gonna piggyback off of Joe and Jeff and just sharing that, the pandemic and the stress that we had, going to 100% e-learning in March, opening up schools with, a hybrid classroom or perhaps some e-learners, it allowed us to better understand as well how teachers were using our products. So, I mean, just like I'm sure in Palm Beach and Polk, you've had existing assets, for a long period of time, and you get some usage reports and you're happy that it justifies the purchase. But now in this new world, teachers who are e-learning are utilizing these tech pieces and, the mirror of the brick and mortar classroom, they're utilizing the same technological pieces. So it's getting better data for us, and we're seeing wider usage of the programs and products that we've positioned in front of teachers. And that's exciting for us to get some good data that we can correlate back with our student achievement, even in without a test in 2020 of spring. The other thing I would like to mention is we talk about inquiry, and it doesn't matter if it's math or science. We want kids to engage in those two content areas and combining perhaps the arts and engineering. But the gamification of content and allowing students to immerse themselves into content outside of school time is really something that's important to us in Hillsborough. So we want products that kids want to play with, and want to learn from K through 12. And so looking at a product like Legends that a student may enjoy doing, and even if the teacher hasn't assigned a specific assignment, we still have kids playing along. And it's no different than like code.org, for instance. So we have a lot of students who can't wait to get home and do whatever the next puzzle is, or code the next product within the code.org platform. So those types of things, I think, are where we make our real gains. There's only so much retooling and engineering we can do of the regular school day. So when we think of that finite amount of time, of course, we're encouraging our teachers, around best practices. We're trying to pack bell to bell, ensure we have the right tools in place. But looking at the whole rest of the day as another learning opportunity, if we put the right things in front of kids, they will play and learn along with them. That's where we are hoping to make significant gains. And I think the pandemic has positioned us in a way to really think about that out of school time and what the district is prescribing in those out of school time spaces.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So one thing I've heard a lot from a number of folks is science in the elementary space is something that unfortunately gets put to the side a little bit, for math and ELA. How can we incorporate STEM and specifically science, and maybe it's something like Larry said, we're incorporating things outside of the class time, right? How have you guys really kind of made sure that science still has a place within the school day, or after school, but somehow is incorporated?
I think I run middle school and high school, but I do talk to the person who does elementary school in Palm Beach County. And again, it was part of the memorandum of understanding. It was part of setting that bar that this is what we're going to do, and this is how it's going to be. And then also, as we started school back in the fall, our certain assurances that we had to provide to the state gave us a little bit of leverage there. But also, again, you can set an expectation, but if you don't set the support in place to meet that expectation and provide the modeling, the tools, the resources, everything. So really thinking about how we provide tools and how we position those things in front of teachers so that they're easy to use. And that is something that, as I think forward to, believe it or not, a science adoption in a couple of years and things like that, those are things that have suddenly really come to the forefront for me in terms of the products that we buy, how it looks like on the teacher side, not just the content. Everybody's got the content. We got it. Content's good. We can check on it. Yep, you got the standards. Yay. If I can't use it, if my kids can't use it, if I can't figure out how to grade my kids' work or get my kids' grades out, all of those little pieces that, I'll be very honest, when we did our last adoption, I didn't really worry about. Now I really worry about them because they matter. They matter intensely. So that usability of the product, and so how we provide that support to our teachers and what tools and resources we put in front of them really helps them incorporate science into their day at the elementary level. Really helps. And then recognizing that it has to tie with reading and math. It has to. It's not going to stand alone. You have to tie it to reading and math, or it isn't going to happen.
Jen, do you have some type of hidden camera in mine and Joe's office? Because this is exactly the conversation we had last week, was when we do science adoptions of what really that should look like moving forward, right? Is that's no longer books. It's no longer those types of things. It's simulations, gamifications. You know, when we went out, we did add gizmos for our secondary schools because we had legends with our elementary schools. And I actually utilized one of my coaches this summer, and I know Sean knows this. I used one of my coaches, and she played every single video game. Every game in Legends, she played every game, and we incorporated those playlists that she built into our units, so that way teachers wouldn't, who, to be fair, their unions have constricted, especially in the elementary school, some of our planning times. And I'm not condoning or not, either way, that's the factual part of it, is we have less planning time, and they're often choosing to plan for ELA and math. So we wanted to put as many of those things in place so that they had the resources to utilize without taking as much of their planning as they would normally take to plan for science. So it's there. We know we have people that are going to want to do that, but they may not be experts in ELA, or they may not be experts in math, and they may not have to use that time to plan for those classes that aren't where schools aren't departmentalized. So we've tried to remove roadblocks for them not teaching science and give them all the resources that we could possibly give them.
Yeah.
But I know, being the one that seems to be taking from science in the elementary world, I know Jeff's team and my team in the elementary have really tried incorporating in the tasks that we do in elementary. You know we're well aware of each other's curriculum maps, and to go ahead and to try to incorporate wherever problem solving is, but put it in the science field. I know they do it also in our language arts. So I think, and again, with ELA and moving to the best standards, I think maybe a callback from when I started teaching and doing a lot more interdisciplinary unit, and really a lot of planning. I know there's going to be a lot of curriculum rewriting in the next couple of years in ELA and mathematics, and for science and social studies to go ahead and, you know, when we relook at our curriculum, to have some more just interdisciplinary, how everything fits together. It's so important that like no kid is not a math kid, just like no kid is not a science kid. Every kid is a science kid. Every kid is a mathematics kid. And just start relating, you know, if they're really strong at ELA, you know, I know Jeff and I can come up with something that will draw a science spark or a love for mathematics in it, you know. But I think that's going to be a key moving on to this, because we can't affect those things, but we can really affect how the lens that students look at our content area. And I really think, you know, incorporating more things together instead of isolated silos, I think that's going to be a key.
Yeah, Joe, that's really good to hear, and something that we're trying this year in Hillsborough, which is building upon our previous efforts, where we dedicated 1 hour a week, K-5 on Mondays, and called Inquiry Mondays, where we borrowed time primarily from science, but we also borrowed from literacy and mathematics time to do the engineering design challenges in part of the year, as well as for the kids to complete their STEM fair projects. So we moved our STEM fair from, you know, something kids do after school with their mom and dad to something that they were doing in the classroom. And so we made it more academic. One thing that we added this year was STEM time to our academic calendars for K through 5. And so to your point, Jennifer, as well, we've given the teachers an opportunity to try new things during that STEM time, as long as they can connect it back to some sort of tiered support for their students, remediation, or maybe they're trying a new product or tool. And it could be finishing time even for an engineering design challenge. But what we're seeing is that teachers are utilizing that STEM time, whether they're brick and mortar or they're e-learning teachers, to try out some of these new things, or perhaps assign a game or a module on a digital platform during that time to get kids thinking about the integration. So that STEM time is kind of flex time. It can be used, again, for math specifically or science specifically, but what we've really been encouraging our teachers to do is find something new, find something that's aligned to what your students need, and utilize that 20 to 30 minutes a day, that's called STEM time, to play, and I think that's one thing that all the districts, I'm sure, would endorse, this joy of learning, making sure that kids are having fun, making sure that they're challenged, and making sure that they have the opportunity for their own voices to be heard, solving all these problems. So it's been so far so good for us, and I think hopefully we'll continue to dedicate that STEM time within our regular school day, in addition to the math and science time that's already prescribed.
One additional thing that we've done is with our core instructional materials for middle school and elementary school, it's not just available to science teachers. So it's available to everybody, all instructional staff, including principals, administrators, everybody. And so an ELA teacher, some elementary schools are departmentalized and some are not. Most middle schools are departmentalized, obviously, but that ELA teacher can, if they want, and we've tried to encourage them to do so, go into that core instructional materials for science and find 3 or 4 different levels of reading around any content they are interested in. And we've tried to encourage them to bring that down and use it in their ELA classrooms and work with the science teachers. Or in elementary school, if the same teacher is teaching all of the subjects, use that throughout that entire, tie it all through together, because it all comes with math connections, it comes with everything. So trying to encourage them to see that as a global resource rather than just a science resource.
That's cool. Lara, I want to build on this idea of STEM time and time around play, right? Like, I think that's a really, really important concept. I think it's something that, just in general, like as humans, right? The more that we can play, whether it's games, whether it's playing outside, right? Like we just learn a lot more, and we're more excited to do that. I'm just curious how others have incorporated this idea of like play within your science, math, ELA, whatever classes.
I think we've just encouraged teachers to find the fun, and it's hard, and it's especially on a personal and professional level for an educator right now. It's really hard to find the fun. It's really hard. It's just the whole thing, right? But remembering why we're there and why we're here is with our kids, and starting with the relationships and encouraging to find that fun and find ways to play. And again, those virtual experiences have been really successful for the students and teachers that have bought into it. And even for teachers who aren't necessarily coming to the district ones, they're creating their own. So creating your own experiences that, encourages kids to inquire and ask questions and not understand and I don't know what's going on here. Explain this to me. That's what I want a kid to say to me. I don't understand. Explain it.
Yeah, it's almost like that show, Choose Your Own Adventure, needs to like come back, right?
I've had enough adventure. Honestly, I'm good. I'm good for 2020 with the adventure part. Can we just pick the ending now and be done with it?
Pick the ending, start fresh.
Yeah, we just start over. Can I go back to the beginning?
You want to go through that again?
I'll make a different choice, I swear.
Jeff,
and just going what Jennifer says, it is so hard to find the fun, but I know Jeff and I have been at schools together, and that is our best days when we are out at schools and working with teachers and working with their kids and working with, that is just generally our best days. It's sometimes it's that step back. We get to remember, oh my gosh, the fun we had teaching, sixth grade math or fifth grade science. It's just that love of it. And Jennifer, I really loved what you say, is just find what you're passionate about and just go ahead and make it fun. I mean, every teacher has their expertise, something that they really have a passion for, and just put your content area in that, whether it's science or mathematics. The kids are really relying on that. And especially times like this is, for the teachers out there, find your passion and give that passion through the content area to your kids. And that's how we're going to get through this.
So we have a few more minutes left before we open up the questions. In terms of like future planning, right? We've all learned a lot already in the past, 6 to 8 months. How are you guys thinking about the second half of the year? And then, how are you thinking beyond that? How are you planning for that?
So I'll say that.
Let's start with Larry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me unmute there. You didn't hear my gasp when you asked that question. I don't think any of us have a silver bullet. For the second semester of school, I think, we feel like we're prepared with the tools that we have. We're going to continue to build, the portfolio of skills for our teachers and rely upon some of our digital assets a little bit more strongly. And I think it was already brought to discussion, when we're looking forward to subsequent years beyond this one, knowing that Jennifer doesn't want to repeat this one, we're looking at ways to include more technology-based learning experiences for kids. And so if there's one bright spot that came out of this COVID experience for all of us, is that we have more teachers now that are comfortable utilizing technology. We're gaining a lot of data around student achievement based upon the use of technology, and we'll be able to make informed decisions next school year and in subsequent years beyond that about the appropriate mix. So I think one of the questions earlier was, how do we maintain like this notion of inquiry-based learning if it's not really hands-on because hands aren't there? How do we encourage kids to create, to dream, to think, to problem solve, and how do we lay the new tech skills of the teachers alongside of what they've traditionally been able to do. Assuming that one day, we're going to go back to something similar to what we had previously experienced in school, I think the one lasting effect will be the utilization of technology.
Yeah, I don't think we returned to what normal was. I think we've passed that. We jumped that shark, if you will, and kind of have in a lot of places, and I'll just call it what it is. When I came to Polk, I came from a one-to-one school district to a school district that had very few devices. So we have started to add those, started to build, if you will, a portfolio for all of our kids. So I don't know that we go back to where we were, but like Larry said, we are starting tomorrow bringing in groups of teachers and a teacher leader cadre, and we're going to have them look at all of our materials and help us write and assess what we currently have, and whether that's really doable for teachers moving forward. Does this work? And we're going to look at, in addition to that, how does that look with a hybrid course? Because for the majority of our teachers, that was their hardest ask this year, was to teach kids at the same time, right, at home and in the classroom. And there's not a ton of research on that being done. So we're pulling what little there is, and we're going to have some conversations around that. And how do we move forward if that is the ask going forward? What type of things can we put in place from teachers that have done it and lived it? And how can we reproduce those good results that some of them have had moving forward? So I'm kind of looking forward to tomorrow and getting those teachers just their feet wet, if you will, with us, with me, and learning from them and how we can do better for them in the second half of the year.
I know for the second half of the year, I know Jeff started mentioning our teacher leader cadre, which is going to be just such a different way of how we've done it in the past. So I know I'm really excited about it. I know Jeff's excited about it. But I know in the area of mathematics, we have the best standards coming up. So we're balancing between trying to work with a new learning management system, but also making sure we don't forget that, we have new standards in mathematics and English language arts coming up. And, we have the mathematical thinking and reasoning standards that are really just good expectations for students and teachers. And so I think starting to do a lot of the online professional development, because I'll tell you we used to do webinars and we were thrilled if we got like 10 teachers on it. And now we start doing a webinar and there's 50, 60, 70 teachers watching it. That is a change, I think, that is not going back. I think teachers have got more comfortable doing online learning. And Jennifer, I cannot tell you how correct you are when you're saying for the next textbook adoption. I know ELA is going on this year with instructional materials. Next year, we're going to have, I hope we have our math again. We already had one mulligan on it. I hope this is just ours goes through. And just, but it's actually not only the curriculum or the standards in it, but it is the usability of it. Because, man, trying to work with materials that does not align to online learning will not be looked at. Mm-hmm. I saw you put in there, Jeff, FET. That is awesome stuff. But I think that's really the next things going on is going to be looking out all the lessons learned, all the mistakes that we've made in the past, and just make sure that we correct them for the new way of learning.
I think you guys mentioned this early in the conversation about teachers being overwhelmed. And if you guys remember back in the spring when all of this this tsunami broke over us, every online learning platform out there suddenly became free, right? And teachers were just inundated with tools and resources. And a lot of what I've learned from that is we need to take a really hard look at the products that we're putting in front of our teachers as a district and making sure that I think it's better to have fewer and be really good at them. That acronym FOCUS. Follow one course until successful. If you didn't like, this particular tool this week, that's okay. Keep trying. Don't switch to another tool. Keep trying and we'll figure it out, but if you just keep switching tools, A, you never figure one out, and B, your kids are just lost. I had teachers who had kids in Google Classroom and they had them doing stuff in BrainPop, and we had them doing stuff in Legends, and we had them doing stuff here, there, and the other way. And the beauty of being able to centrally locate, and with Legends especially, bring it right into Google Classroom. So everything is right here. So I'm not sending my kids every which way. And so those kinds of considerations are going to be really, really important. It ties into that usability, but choosing your tools really carefully and not inundating your teachers with tools. Just pick one. You just need one. It's going to that does the job, and then we're fine.
Awesome. No, this is great. Okay, so I know some folks have asked questions, and you guys have already been answering some of the resources. That's great. Thank you. A little promotion for FSU. There you go. So I want to open this up to questions. Lindsay's going to help us out. So go ahead and you can type in the Q&A your questions. Let us know what questions you have, and the team will try and the panelists try and answer it.
Great. The first question is from Cindy, and she's saying that hybrid classes are really so challenging, and she'd be really interested in hearing some strategies that you all have been using to help teachers, especially middle school teachers.
The first thing I would say is keep it simple. Keep it really simple. The engagement comes in the conversations that teachers are having around content, not necessarily in the tool or in the pretty slides. It comes from the questions that you can have the most engaging class ever, and all it is a conversation if you're asking the right questions. So keep it simple. and keep it structured. Those are keep it simple and structured.
Yeah, I think something that was mentioned on the call or webinar already today was, the opportunity to have students paired in the brick and mortar classroom with students who are e-learning. So that's something that I have seen in our classrooms, particularly in middle and high school as we drop into schools. But also what I've seen, particularly in science, that's been successful even in grades 3 through 5, is allowing, giving students and their families or their caregivers a week or two advance notice on some of the materials that will be needed to explore some sort of phenomena when it comes time to do that. And so even if the students at home are not using exactly the same materials that students in the classroom are using, the students have an opportunity to share what they are doing or have done at home and what they observed or saw based upon the experimentation that they had done. And so as long as you give families enough lead time, we're seeing quite a bit of participation in that type of activity at home, and then students coming onto or into their virtual classroom along with their brick and mortar peers to discuss what they did and what they thought they observed. And so that's been a way for us to continue, inquiry-based science using actual materials in the classroom, as well as for those students at home, and for both of them to have meaningful conversations about what they're observing. And back to Jennifer's point, the teacher at that point, is more of a facilitator of the conversation, and the students can work through, what they think they saw or what they didn't think they saw and what the data really means based upon, the experimentation that's happened in the home or in the community, as well as what's happened in the classroom. And so in other cases where it's a little bit more complex, we've had students lead experimentation within the classroom and more of a kind of a science, demo way for the students online to then ask questions, about what the students are doing in the classroom. And again, the teacher is more of a facilitator of a conversation, while the students in class lead the experimentation, and the students that are online are asking questions to those students as they're doing the experiment. And it could be simple things like, what does it feel like? Is it warm or cold? Is there, a chemical reaction? Do you see something happening? And that's been a way for us to engage our kids offline or online, as well as those that are in brick and mortar.
That's great, thank you. I know this question has been answered a little bit in the chat, but I'd love to dive into some more specific STEM resources that teachers can use during COVID times, in addition to legends and gizmos.
I have teachers using Google Maps and Google Earth to start, again, that idea that Larry was just speaking of, is that idea of the phenomenon or starting a conversation. So going places, going to Niagara Falls, going to the Grand Canyon, going to those kinds of places that spark conversations, with sixth graders. Landforms, such a tough one to teach. Like, how do you teach landforms? They're so, boring. But anyway, but Google Earth takes you there, literally takes you there. How is this happening? What, how did this form? So those tools, and again, I really stress the idea of simplicity, keeping the tasks, the ideas simple until your kids have grasped it, and then, then scaffolding it to that level of rigor where they need to be.
Yeah, I think there's just so many out there. There really is so much you can use. And I think Jen hit it on the head earlier when she said just focus on one thing and get really, really good at it. But I think that teachers' own phones, and we talked about it earlier, just going out and videoing and recording these things and then having rich conversations around them really is meaningful, because kids, and it was hit on earlier, kids are going to follow as teachers because they have infectious personalities and they have passions for things. But that's why kids want to learn, right? They have an inquisitive nature that these people have found that spark within them. And so I think you can use any of those tools. Shameless plug, my wife works for National Geographic. So I would say that's probably best, but probably right like 1A and 1B with Legends. So, but there are so many opportunities out there. I think you just got to find what you are passionate about, and we talked about it earlier. So there's tons.
I have a teacher in our district who built an entire unit in his environmental science class around the 2 squirrels on his back patio.
That's awesome.
Whole unit of environmental studies, and the kids loved it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. Well, this has been amazing. You guys have shared some incredible ideas, some incredible things that your districts are doing. So I want to thank Joe and Jennifer and Jeff and Larry for joining us today. And to kind of wrap us up, I mean, I think, you know, the end of the conversation here with the questions, I mean, it goes back to Joe's point of everyone really is an explorer, right? And I think, you know, you all shared about a number of learning experiences that I think are great for folks to steal, you know, the STEM time, this idea of simulations, and these virtual field trips, or even, you know, creating a backyard experience that talks about environmental science, right? Like, I think those are really, really cool ideas to take back to, you know, districts wherever you are and incorporate those. And so we want to thank you from the Legends team for joining us today, everybody, and definitely thank the panelists. You know, nice little round of applause for you all. You've been fantastic. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and thank you all again for joining us.
Thank you very much.